Sounds good. Thank you, Martina. Hello, everyone, on this lovely Friday afternoon after a 3-day conference. We hope that by talking about energy resiliency in Alaska through financing, you will be absolutely energized about what is happening in the state and what we have going on and look forward to in the future. We will walk through a quick brief history of what on earth we're talking about, and then go into what on earth does the acronym CPACE stand for, what's that alphabet soup, and then where we see this all going so that it can become a statewide initiative, not just Anchorage based as it is today. I'm Melanie Conwell. I'm a portfolio manager for the 49 State Angel Fund, a venture capital fund within the Municipality of Anchorage, investing in Alaska's entrepreneurs and bringing in private investors to match our funding. And I'm joined by Shaina Kilcoyne, who is the Energy and Sustainability Manager for Solid Waste Services within the municipality. So what on earth is CPACE? We'll give you quick highlight here. It stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. It is a financing program which provides low-cost, long-term financing for commercial and industrial real estate folks, specifically focused on energy efficiency, renewable energy, and water conservation projects. It is paid back through an assessment on the property tax of these properties. So with that, Shaina, please tell us how this all came about.
Thank you, Melanie. So let's see if I have control here. Did you do that or did I? Okay, so I wanted to share quickly kind of a broad view. To date, 37 states and Washington, D.C. have enabled CPACE legislation. So this may be innovative, but it's not a new concept for us. Nationwide, through commercial PACE, we've seen over $2 billion invested through over 2,500 projects, creating 24,000 jobs. And I want to point out that clean energy jobs, when we're talking about energy efficiency and renewable energy, most of these are really on the ground jobs. So by definition, they're local jobs. So this also means that we've had a lot of examples to look at throughout the development of our CPACE process. And it did take a small village for us to get to the first program here in Alaska. Melanie, do you want to help me? Thank you. So how did CPACE come to be? Well, it took many actors to bring the program to Alaska. And I'm going to start with just a few of the key players that helped us kick this off. Alaska Energy Authority is the state's energy office they brought together the CPACE Advisory Committee in 2017 once the state legislature passed CPACE. And so I'm going to share more about the advisory committee in just a second because they're a very important piece to this. But with the help of the Alaska Energy Authority and the Department of Energy, we worked with McDowell Group, who completed a market study for us, which I think is now McKinley Group, and PACE Financial Servicing. They do CPACE program design, implementation, and administration, and they helped guide our CPACE advisory committee once we brought them on. Next slide, please. So here's a list of our amazing cast of subject matter experts on the advisory committee that helped us move the program forward. This group has been meeting since 2017, moving this forward. And it's a fairly simple program, but it takes a lot of work to get it kind of up and running. And I want to point out that the goal here is so that we have kind of a uniform program statewide that any entity can join. So while it took this group a little bit more work to kick it off, the idea is it will be simpler for more municipalities and jurisdictions in the future. But you can see here that we've had representation on this advisory committee from local governments, state and federal government, finance entities, industry representatives, nonprofit organizations, and tribal entity, all helping us move this forward. Next slide, please. So a real quick timeline here. In 2017, the state statute passed, and this allowed tax assessing jurisdictions to create a program. Anchorage passed our resolution in September and our ordinance in October, which put PACE into our code. And again, we worked with all of these different entities. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention here in this very important event where we worked with the advisory committee and Alaska Energy Authority to submit, and we received a grant for $300,000 from the Department of Energy, which allowed us to hire the McKinley Group and Pace Financial Servicing to move us forward. And that was a huge, huge help. And that's, I'll put it out there again to other entities that might want to participate. Pace Financial Servicing is still being paid for this program. And so they've been such an amazing help in moving us forward and can help other municipalities move this program forward as well. And back to you, Melanie, for a little bit more about what CPACE is.
I would be happy to. So as we mentioned, CPACE stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. And with that, it is very much focused on financing all costs associated with the property upgrades that are related to clean energy projects of all kinds. It improves the value of properties since it makes them more commercially viable by having these upgrades. It decreases operating costs as a result, especially if you're fixing that old boiler that's been banging the last couple months or years, perhaps. It uses private capital, capitalizes the private industry to be able to finance these projects, since it is not the municipality or the government entity providing this money. It is very much the loans come through private capital providers, and it creates local jobs, as Shaina mentioned. So as we think about tactically what this looks like, first of all, the property owners decide that they're going to finance a project and go to their standard capital provider, which then underwrites and vets the loan that they might want. From there, they will submit their application at the CPACE website to have that assessment levied on or lien put on their property, so that we can add on to the property tax every year when they pay it. Then they go out and find a local contractor to install the project and complete it, which then the bill gets added on to their annual property taxes as mentioned. And as this is a lien on the property and not on the property owner, this financing follows the property along if it ever gets resold over time. So why is this even special? Well, a whole lot of different reasons. No upfront project costs, long-term fixed rates, it transfers with the property as a lien, priority lien, it increases the property value, and it requires that the project to actually pencil out and show that there are savings that are happening. There are all kinds of things that can actually finance, which we are so excited about. And we know that a lot of things are missing from this list and can't wait to see what folks apply for. And it's also the part of a bigger puzzle. So there are other taxes and incentives, CDFIs work in this realm, green investment banks, opportunity zones, to actually help make CPACE's mission happen out there. So as we think about the different impacts that such a program can have, since this is a conference on local impact and economy, there are different facets of our economy, of our communities that this will impact. From a money standpoint, all of our mortgage lenders and private lenders that we're working with in Alaska to make this possible and actually help them underwrite, to the contractors that will actually be installing and carrying out these programs. And then the communities that will benefit from having clean energy projects around them. Especially during economic downturns, Colorado has seen in particular has had a great impact on their economy because It is an important source of credit for property owners, especially for improvements that they needed to maintain and upgrade over time. And it creates a capital stack for those lenders that they can access.
Thanks, Melanie. And so here's just, we pulled one example. This is from Wisconsin University Lofts to kind of give you an idea of what a project might look like. And this one kind of runs the gamut. The improvements include interior and exterior lighting, building envelope updates, code updates, ceiling insulation, windows, a new boiler, low flow water fixtures, and fixed appliances. So really like a pretty big project that was financed here for $900,000. Again, all of that was through CPACE. And this is estimated to save $65,700 per year. So that's about a 13.5-year payback, which typically you might not see, but through CPACE, the idea is you can do a long-term financed project. In Alaska, that means 20 years or the life of the project, whichever is shorter. But this was a cool example because, like I said, it just has a little bit of everything and is a kind of great idea of what you can do when you think outside the box. Next slide, please. And so related to clean energy development, we wanted to point out this federal infrastructure bill, which you may have been hearing about over the past week now, 2 weeks. So we think that there's really quite an opportunity to leverage a program like CPACE. And Melanie talked about CPACE being a part of this bigger puzzle, and I'm hoping to see that here. You may have also heard the governor today introduce the Alaska Energy Independence Act, which would create an Alaska Energy Independence Fund, or some of you might know this as a green bank. And so the idea is this would kind of catalyze the clean energy market in Alaska through private sector co-investment. And the proposal will include an initial fund capitalization of $10 million. So this is really cool. It kind of hopefully would set us up to receive federal money. And you can see here in the key provisions, this $100 billion for power grid and clean energy. I want to just point out that within that is a $27 billion provision for a clean energy accelerator nationwide. Clean energy accelerator, basically we're looking at a different word for a green bank. So if you're not familiar with a green bank, we can always point you towards more. Next slide, please. So we wanted to say thank you. Hopefully we've helped demystify that alphabet soup, and you come visit us at muni.org/cpace. Open to working with lenders, contractors, property owners, of course, and other municipal and borough jurisdictions on this program. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melanie and Shaina. By the way, if we have time with a few minutes at the end, we'll have some questions. So you have any questions in your head, throw them in the chat or save them for later. But Katie, if you're ready, take it away.
Alrighty, thank you all so much for joining my presentation today. And I just wanted to thank the JEDC for hosting such a wonderful event. I have really enjoyed hearing from so many people that believe in the impact of thinking locally. My name is Katie Ashbaugh. I'm the program manager for BuyAlaska, and I'm excited to talk to you about how we are working to serve Alaska businesses and grow the Alaska economy. So BuyAlaska is a program under the Alaska Small Business Development Center, and many of you are likely familiar with the SBDC services, but for those that aren't, the SBDC is a really amazing resource that's available to all Alaska businesses. They provide free advising for a business at any phase of their business life cycle. They offer on-demand workshops and training webinars, and many of these are free. However, right now, actually all of these are free through September. And for many of those business owners that are on the call, I highly recommend that you take advantage of this offer while it exists. So the SBDC officially relaunched the BuyAlaska program in October of 2020. And this was in direct response to the need to support businesses through this economic crisis with the intention of rebuilding a thriving and resilient economy in Alaska. So Alaskans and Alaska businesses need our help more than ever right now. Since February of last year, Alaskans have experienced a loss of over 22,000 jobs, and the largest of that being in the leisure and hospitality industry, which is down a staggering 23% from last year. Online shopping has been on the rise, and since the beginning of the pandemic, we saw a really dramatic spike. So Alaska's brick and mortar stores that were already operating in a competitive environment were really hit hard. Many that are struggling to keep their doors open are also trying to find their way onto the online marketplace as well. And due to Alaska's relatively low economic growth rate because of our high energy costs and our shipping prices and our dependence on out-of-state manufacturing, we're looking at a 10% losses of our business is going to take an estimated 5 to 10 years to recover. So in response to the need to support small businesses in Alaska, more than 40 leading organizations statewide have partnered in the development of BuyAlaska. And each of these organizations that you see here believes that small businesses in Alaska are worth fighting for. So as you can see, we are quite the powerhouse, and we are aligned under one shared goal for this program. And that is for consumers to shop from Alaskan-owned businesses first, to think local first before turning to national retailers, and for consumers to make the decision to support small and discover what's available within our great state. So why are we doing this? We've heard so much wonderful information over the past 3 days about this goal and why it's so important. And BuyAlaska recently partnered up with the UA Center for Economic Development to conduct a study on the economics of buying locally within Alaska and what a shift to local spending would really translate to for Alaskans specifically. So the state's supply chain, business revenue distribution, and the economic impact on local jobs and wages was all assessed. Their findings were that in Alaska, with non-local businesses, an estimated 22% of revenue stay in state, compared to local businesses, we're seeing 63% of business revenues staying circulating within Alaska. So the amount staying in state is pretty on par with what we've heard coming out from other states over the last few days. And in Alaska, what we're seeing the most of is revenue retention in profits, sourcing of goods and services from other local businesses, and community-based charitable giving. So in other words, $1 spent at a local business has 3 times the impact of $1 spent at a non-local business. And this is because Alaskan-owned businesses are more likely to use local supply chains and utilize other local businesses as suppliers and service providers. Local businesses also have more of a vested interest in the well-being of the community and are more likely to give to Alaskan charitable organizations, and this supports the state network of nonprofits and service organizations. And choosing local means supporting not just an Alaska business owner, but really a compounding system of Alaska businesses and people. And that is a really big reason why we're all gathered here for this conference and why the BuyAlaska program exists to encourage a shift in consumer spending. And so what does this shift in consumer spending really look like in Alaska? If every household in Alaska shifted $20 per week of their spending to local businesses, and so we're looking about $1,000 per year, Alaska would see a total of $250 million in revenues to local businesses, $157 million that stays local and circulating in the Alaska economy, and ultimately that equates to an additional $103 million in revenues that would otherwise leave the state. And this $20 per week shift to local spending also creates and supports jobs for Alaskans. Overall, an estimated 6,000 additional jobs could be supported, and this small shift would also create an additional $215 million in wages, and that is a lot more money that's going into the pockets of Alaskans. And overall, because of the ripple effects of spending at local businesses, this results in additional added value of $308 million to Alaska's GDP. So to reach our goal for consumers to shop from Alaskan-owned businesses first, it is the BuyAlaska program mission to amplify Alaska businesses through connection, awareness, and access to resources. We want to show consumers what's available locally, bring to light that ultimately a shift to spending to local businesses will create an economically resilient Alaska and a thriving place for us all to live. So in doing so, we value community, collaboration, and prosperity as we work together to achieve this. So social media is a powerful tool, and we try and use it to connect consumers to Alaska businesses and to create conversations that spark interest and build pride for small businesses. We use campaigns to get the public involved and inspired to think local first. We recently wrapped up our March Manufacturing Month, where we highlighted 8 different manufacturing industries across Alaska. And this April, we're promoting 30 ways in 30 days to support Alaska businesses. So y'all should check out that campaign and challenge yourselves. So to give businesses the tools that they need to connect with customers and to also take the sting off the cost of doing business, we have discount programs with FedEx, with QuickBooks Online, and with Constant Contact. And we've also created a space for BuyAlaska members to offer discounts to other BuyAlaska members, and we've called that the BuyAlaska Discount Club. One of the most notable initiatives of our program is the BuyAlaska Business Directory, and this is a free resource, free opportunity for businesses to connect with potential customers and for business owners to find each other. So since we've been live just this last January this year, almost 500 businesses have joined us as a member and created a listing for their business for free. We have made it possible for consumers to search anything, to filter by location, if the business has shipping available and can ship right to your door, if they have made in Alaska or Alaska grown certifications. Businesses are searchable across the state by category. And we've also recently made it easier to find minority-owned businesses. The goal of the directory here is to connect Alaskans with products and services that are available in the state, to give visibility to small Alaska businesses, and to give potential visitors an opportunity to explore what is locally owned, and also to create opportunities for more business-to-business collaboration is a big goal. So there are many reasons to support local businesses. We believe it's important to keep money in the state, circulating and supporting Alaskans and Alaska businesses. Doing so fosters new business growth and builds regional resiliency that is essential to our remote state. Supporting Alaska food and agricultural businesses means that we're strengthening our food system, protecting agricultural land for the future, and creating food security. It is critical that we support farming and local food production so that it remains viable in Alaska. Eating locally also ensures that your food has not traveled thousands of miles and been refrigerated using fossil fuels and producing large amounts of greenhouse gases. And so we're supporting the environment as well by choosing to support small. And finally, supporting small businesses means that we are fostering the cultures of our communities. And I think that this is something that everybody at this conference can agree on. Small businesses create the rich and vibrant places for us to live. And in many cases, they become, our communities become defined by the businesses that exist within them. So in addition, this culture also attracts people from all around the globe who want to come and experience even just a small slice of the piece that we're lucky enough to call home. So what can you do? Well, as we've been talking about the last 3 days, the #1 thing you can do is think local first. It all starts with a decision to try. And I've heard this point emphasized by Kimber and by others throughout the conference. We are asking for a conscious effort to simply shift spending. Join as a member on BuyAlaska. Membership is free. We'll keep you updated with our ongoing initiatives in our monthly newsletter. And as I mentioned, there are other perks as well. If you're a business owner on the call, definitely list your business, gain visibility, and help us catalog all of the amazing Alaskan-owned businesses that are in operation. Follow us on social media and get in on the conversation. Help us get our message in front of as many people as possible, and by liking and sharing our posts and getting engaged. And within your own organizations and circles, steer efforts to support small businesses in your community and create opportunities for consumers to choose local. I know many of you at the conference are already doing this, so keep up the good work. And finally, let us know how we can partner with you and help your community leverage your resources. We are a collaborative program and always welcome new input. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And I'll also stay after in the networking hub if anybody wants to talk with me one-on-one. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. And next up, we have Ryan. You're all ready.
Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted, Ryan.
Oh, dang it. All right, it's officially a Zoom meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for sticking around, even if I'm muted. Hopefully now that I'm unmuted, it'll be a little bit more exciting. Can everyone see the Innovation in Alaska slide up there? Am I sharing the right screen? All right, great. Thank you. So who am I? Why am I here talking today? Well, my name is Ryan Witten. I'm the program manager for Alaska Seeds of Change. And Alaska Seeds of Change is a workforce development program of Alaska Behavioral Health. We work with 16 to 24-year-olds to build basic workforce development skills. We build those skills through value-added food production through the EV's Brinery product line, and through growing hydroponically in an 8,000 square foot vertical hydroponics greenhouse in Anchorage. So here's a picture of the overview of the greenhouse. We've got some of our Salanova lettuce and some of our rows of towers there. If you're ever in town and you're interested in doing a tour, please feel free to reach out and let me know. We'd be happy to show you the place. So through my role at Seeds of Change, I spend a lot of time thinking about how we can help prepare Alaskans for Alaskan jobs. And the folks that we're working with here, our goal isn't that they work at Alaska Seeds of Change forever. Our goal is that they are exiting our program and that they are finding gainful employment out in the community with one of our hopefully one of our Alaskan owned businesses that we have. And so, this presentation is going to cover a lot of material that was talked about in a business education compact panel discussion that happened. If you haven't heard of BEC, BEC is a monthly discussion that happens connecting business owners and educators in our state to help explore how we can get a better fit between the skills that we're helping folks learn and the skills that are needed out in the workforce. I highly encourage you to reach out to Dave Rees and get added onto that list. So I'd like to give a special thanks to Cody Buse, Ty Ettinger, Kai Holland, Taylor Holzhauser, Heather McCarty, Rachel Miller, Dave Rees, and Isaac Vanderberg, and Eric Wyatt. So you don't have to take my word for it. A lot of what I'll be talking about today are things that these individuals brought up during our panel discussion. So in Alaska, we spend a lot of time trying to balance between tradition and innovation, and sometimes that's viewed as being a conflict. We also feel this push-pull between the rural and urban communities in our state. But I think that as we move forward, we really need to look at how we can blend tradition and innovation together and what opportunities that presents for us. Similarly, I think in Alaska, we have a really unique opportunity to look at the possibilities in our rural communities and our urban communities and how those two complement each other. So that kind of brings me to the question that I have been holding in my head for a while now. What is next for Alaska? We have a lot of different factors that are impacting our state, that are impacting our workforce, things that business owners are trying to consider. I left the pandemic off of there. I'm trying to just mentally block that at this point. But we have things like general innovation that's happening, automation, food security, climate change. There's an energy transition that is in the works right now, and some cool financing that can happen to go along with that, as you heard with CPACE. So, in the energy industry, we have that transition that's happening. There's a lot of new fields or new jobs that are available in energy right now. But do we have the training that's available to support those jobs? Do we have individuals connected to finance like Melanie who can help you understand how to fund those projects, how to make those improvements happen? As we look at solar, wind, and our existing energy infrastructure, there's a lot of maintenance that needs to happen there, a lot of installation, a lot of support. And one of the themes that we have seen across each of these industries, I'll touch on it a little bit later, is the graying of the fleet and the aging of the folks that are working in these industries. And this is apparent in energy generation. A lot of our remote power generators, they are starting to age, and we need younger folks to come in to serve as linemen and to service our generation sites. In mariculture, this is a similar challenge. We have lots of exciting stuff that's happening in growing shellfish and seaweed cultivation. The traditional fisheries are a bit crowded at this point, and there's some high barriers to entry. But we're seeing a similar graying of the fleet. In agriculture, that's another similar challenge there. We've got the majority of our farmers are in their 60s. And so, we have some really exciting stuff that's happening in agriculture in Alaska. We have a nearly 50-50 ratio of male to female farmers in our state. We do have a number of fresh farms that are getting started. I'm going to pull a couple of facts directly from Rachel Miller. So from 2012 to 2017, 47% of Alaskan farmers are women. We lead the nation in new farmers, or farmers that have been farming for less than 10 years. A lot of our farmers in Alaska, it looks a little bit different than traditional agriculture. We're not a large scale commercial agriculture monocrop farm. We have a lot of what's called smallholder farmers. And I think that that's one of our unique strengths in Alaska. We can touch on that a little bit later. The other really exciting thing in agriculture is that direct-to-consumer sales doubled from 2012 to 2017, and that was even further accelerated during the course of the pandemic. Shipping and logistics in our state, as the North begins to open up, we're going to see some rerouting of supply chains. Instead of driving everything south, we will begin to be able to send things north, and that's going to require some different infrastructure and some different thinking for how goods are distributed. Tied in very similarly, travel and remote work in Alaska. We are an excellent place to live, work, and play. And as we have increased broadband access in our state, as more infrastructure is built up here, we're going to be able to host a lot of remote workers, folks that want to be in our state, and they don't want to be making that couple-hour commute. They could be in a cabin somewhere, and they can be joining their corporate Zoom meetings from the comfort of their own cabin. Personally, I'd be really excited about that. And then if you don't know, we have a space industry in Alaska. We have a launch facility in Kodiak. We actually just had the launch company, which was acquired by, I believe it was Voyager. And so a large holding company purchased an Alaskan space company. And so that industry is just going to continue to grow up here. So, I've just kind of thrown a bunch of changes that are happening in a bunch of industries up here. And I want to take just a moment to pause and to ask, what does Alaska look like 30 years from now? If you were to close your eyes and think, what does our state look like? Let's hold that out as our goalpost, our North Star for where we're trying to get to. And then if we take a couple steps back, so if we want to get to that 30-year vision, what does Alaska look like 10 years from now? How do we begin to put some of those pieces in place? And what does that look like 3 years from now? That's a pretty short-term goal. I found that most of the projects I work on tend to move in 3-year chunks for meaningful change. So what steps do we need to take now to be able to realize our vision of tomorrow? So a couple key considerations. While we're trying to prepare Alaskans for Alaskan jobs, what are the things that folks can be doing that they could stay in their own community, that they could make a living, and that they could, have some of those additional economic drivers? Every dollar that gets spent in our Alaskan community, as we learned, has a multiplicative effect within that community. So, a couple things that are looked at is startup capital. How much money do folks have? It's pretty expensive to be able to get a boat, to be able to get into mariculture, to be able to buy farmland so that you can start growing. And so what are the supports that are available? There's a couple of cool programs that are happening in our state right now. There's the Alaska Ocean Cluster. They've got a startup studio, and that studio is designed to help businesses to be able to grow and scale. Similarly, we've got Launch Alaska, which is a deployment accelerator. So if you've got an existing business, they're there to help you connect with your market here in our state, build out that market, and deploy your product. in Alaska, we really need to be considering our supporting infrastructure. And so that looks like in agriculture and mariculture, what does our supply chain look like? What does our cold chain look like? I know that we have challenges in the wintertime when we ship herbs north, that if they sit on the tarmac too long, they freeze. But similarly, if we don't have cold storage along the way, we're going to run into some real challenges, and we're not going to be able to get our goods to a processor and then get them to market. And then another challenge is education. This is a big opportunity for us. There's a lot of really cool programs that are going on in our state right now. Anchorage Community Land Trust, I think, is doing some great work. Cody Buse has the Ag in the Classroom program, and also is working with Future Farmers of America. Rachel Miller, her work with APU and the Spring Creek Farm, the stuff that we're doing here at Seeds of Change to get people supported. Another really exciting program that's going to be coming up is the G-Beta program with the municipality. And so right now there could be some additional support for those early stage organizations, those folks that are trying to build those skills and get into our community. And I'm really excited to see what that program could open up for us. The biggest thing that folks are looking for is going to be support from the community. You know, it really takes somebody understanding what is going on in their own community for what jobs are available for them. What are the opportunities that are there? Eric Wyatt had a great example for mariculture and growing shellfish. Most kids don't understand that that's an actual job that they could go do. But if you step foot in a classroom, if you have that conversation with someone, then it opens their eyes. And so I'd like to encourage you to, every chance that you get, have a conversation with someone about the opportunities that you see, about the cool things happening in your career. So please get involved. Feel free to send me an email at ryan.witten@akseedsofchange.com. We're always looking for mentors and for folks to get engaged with our youth. I've got a note from Aaron. We got the upskilling program that Generator is running. It looks like there's going to be another exciting program coming up to Anchorage. Thanks for listening to my talk, and I'll hope to talk with you more.